When the balance shifted, it started the day they stopped calling me by my name. I didn't notice it right away. At first, it was small things, a change in tone, a teasing glance, an echo of laughter that lingered longer than it should have. But one evening, while I was setting the dinner table, I heard it for the first time. "You missed a spot, dear," my stepmom said gently, her voice carrying that curious blend of warmth and control that always made me straighten unconsciously. I turned, half smiling, half annoyed, ready to respond, and then I saw her daughter watching me from across the room.
Ella.
She was 19, quick-witted, sharp-tongued, and utterly unlike her mother in every possible way, except one. They both had that quiet authority, the kind that made you feel small without a word. She was smirking faintly, her eyes flicking from my apron to the way I was holding the dish towel. "Careful," she said lightly. "You're starting to look like one of us." I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off, but my ears burned. My stepmom, Claire, didn't correct her. She just smiled, that calm, knowing smile that made you feel like she'd already thought 3 steps ahead of you. When my father left for a year-long research project overseas, I told myself nothing would really change. I'd help around the house, keep busy, stay out of their way. But the rhythm of the home shifted quietly, almost invisibly. I became useful in small ways, carrying groceries, helping with chores, running errands. Claire appreciated order, and Ella, well, she enjoyed testing limits. It was one Sunday afternoon when the first real change happened. Claire was reorganizing the upstairs closet when she called me in. "Daniel, could you hold this up for me?" she said, handing me a long floral skirt. I did. She tilted her head, assessing me with a strange intensity. "You've got good proportions," she murmured. Ella, sprawled on the bed scrolling her phone, looked up. "Oh my God, Mom, he totally could pull it off." "Pull what off?" I asked, feeling my pulse quicken. "Nothing," they said in unison, which somehow made it worse. Claire smiled softly, almost motherly. "We're just saying you have a gentleness about you. Not every man does." I didn't know how to respond, so I just stood there, awkwardly holding the skirt like it was something fragile. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about their words. Gentleness. It wasn't exactly an insult, but it wasn't a compliment either, at least not the kind I was used to. I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror later, studying my features, wondering if they saw something I didn't. The next morning, Claire was already in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. She handed me a cup of coffee and said, almost casually, "Would you mind helping Ella with her art project today? She's doing something with fabric design." "Sure," I said without thinking. What I didn't know then was that this would be the beginning of something I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. Ella had spread fabric samples all over the living room floor, soft pastels, silk ribbons, and lace swatches that shimmered under the afternoon sun. She handed me a piece of ivory satin.
"Hold this," she said.
I obeyed. She stood back, tilting her head like an artist studying a model. "You know," she murmured, "Mom's right. You have the frame for this. Slim, balanced." If I didn't know better. She didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning hung in the air like perfume. I tried to laugh. "You two have a weird sense of humor." She smiled, not mocking, just curious. "Maybe. Or maybe we just see things you don't." From that day on, they started including me in their quiet, subtle routines. I'd find myself holding up fabrics, trying on scarves just for fun, helping test color combinations. It was always framed as a joke, a harmless little experiment, until one day, Claire handed me a folded box with a note. "For the new you." Inside was a soft white blouse. I remember staring at it, my hands trembling slightly. "This is a gift," she said simply. "You don't have to wear it if it makes you uncomfortable." But of course I did. And when I stepped into the living room wearing it, their eyes told me something that words never could. For a moment, I felt both completely exposed and strangely seen, as though a part of me I'd always ignored had just stepped quietly into the light. That night, I couldn't stop looking at myself. The blouse, the way it softened my reflection, the way I suddenly didn't hate what I saw. It terrified me. But underneath the fear, there was a strange calm, a dangerous kind of peace. And I realized, with a quiet, sinking certainty, that they hadn't changed me. They'd simply made it impossible to keep pretending. The line between us. The next few days blurred together, not because nothing happened, but because too much did. Every moment with them felt deliberate, like I was walking through a dream I hadn't agreed to but couldn't wake from. The house had its own rhythm now, soft laughter drifting from the kitchen, quiet footsteps on polished wood, the faint scent of jasmine that seemed to follow me everywhere. It was supposed to be temporary, I told myself. I was just helping them manage things while my father was away. That was it. But the truth was, they didn't need my help. They were teaching me something, shaping me in ways too subtle to resist. One morning, I came downstairs to find Ella sitting at the table, sipping tea with her usual air of mischief. She looked up and smiled. "Morning, Danny." I froze. "What did you just call me?" "Danny," she repeated innocently. "It suits you better." Claire didn't even look up from her newspaper. "I rather like it," she said casually. I wanted to protest, to insist that wasn't my name, but the sound of it, soft and melodic, echoed strangely in me.
Danny.
It felt too close, too familiar, like it belonged to a version of me that was already trying to exist. The name stuck. Within a week, it wasn't just Ella saying it. Claire started too, in that calm, unshakable tone that made everything she said sound final. "Danny, could you pass me the salt? Danny, you fold the towels better than I do. Danny, try this. I think the color suits you." The way she said it carried something deeper than teasing. It was acceptance, maybe even approval. And I craved it. One evening, Claire asked if I'd help her in her studio. She was working on a photography project about identity, or at least that's what she said. The room was filled with soft lighting, fabrics draped over stands, and a faint hum of music that wrapped around the silence, like silk. "Just stand there," she said gently. "No pressure. I just want to capture how light falls on your face." I stood awkwardly, hands at my sides. Ella adjusted a curtain behind me, her eyes studying me the way an artist studies lines and shadow. "Tilt your chin up a little," Claire said. I obeyed. "Good. Now, relax your shoulders." The click of the camera sounded almost like a heartbeat. After a few shots, she lowered it and smiled. "You have something very rare, Danny. Softness without weakness. That's beautiful." The compliment hit harder than I expected. It wasn't about looks. It was about something I'd never been allowed to value: gentleness, vulnerability. I didn't know how to respond. Later that night, I found a photo print drying on her desk. It was me, but not the me I thought I was. The lighting softened my features. My expression was calm, almost serene. I looked delicate. And for the first time, I didn't flinch from the reflection. I studied it, tracing the outlines of who I was slowly becoming. Ella appeared behind me without warning, her reflection joining mine in the glass. "You look like you belong," she said softly. "Belong?" I asked. She smiled faintly.
"Here.
With us. Like this." The way she said it made something inside me shift. I wanted to deny it, to say this wasn't me, but the truth was sitting there in the photo, undeniable and patient. That weekend, Claire suggested a fun experiment. She wanted to test color palettes for her next shoot. "You'd be doing me a huge favor, Danny," she said, her tone as calm as always. "Nothing serious, just a few styles." I agreed. I always did. When I entered the room, Ella was already waiting, her eyes bright with amusement. On the bed lay a collection of clothes, soft fabrics, muted colors, and accessories arranged neatly, like a ritual. Claire gestured toward them. "Choose one." My throat went dry. "You mean wear one?" "Yes." Ella grinned. "You'll look amazing. Promise." I wanted to say no, to laugh it off. But the air between us was thick with expectation, and part of me, the part that had started answering to Danny, didn't want to disappoint them. So I chose the simplest one, a long, flowing tunic with delicate sleeves. When I stepped out of the bathroom, my heart hammering, they both went quiet. For a moment, the silence, was unbearable. Then Claire smiled softly.
Perfect, she said.
And Ella whispered, told you. Their words shouldn't have meant so much, but they did. Because in that instant, standing under the soft light of the room, I didn't feel like an intruder anymore. I felt like part of them. That night, when I finally changed back into my own clothes, the mirror felt empty, like I'd taken off more than fabric. Like I'd peeled away something I wasn't sure I wanted back. I lay awake for hours, replaying the look in their eyes. And even though I told myself I could stop whenever I wanted, I already knew the truth. I didn't want to. Becoming Danny. By the time autumn came, I had stopped noticing when the line between pretend and become had blurred. It didn't happen in one grand, dramatic moment. It was quiet, like dusk fading into night, one shade at a time. Claire never pressured. That was what made it disarming. Every suggestion felt gentle, reasonable, even kind. Try this moisturizer, it'll help your skin. You'd look neat if you trimmed your eyebrows a little. Posture, Danny, keep your shoulders relaxed. Confidence shows through stillness. At first, I obeyed because it was easier. But slowly, I realized something deeper was happening. I liked it. The small changes. The soft voice that had replaced my old tone. The quietness that no longer felt like weakness. Ella noticed first. You've changed, she said one evening as we cleaned the kitchen together.
Her tone wasn't mocking this time.
It was almost admiring. You're calmer now. Is that bad? I asked, rinsing a plate. She smiled, handing me a towel.
No.
Just different. Like you finally stopped fighting something.
Her words stuck with me.
A few nights later, I passed by Claire's room and saw her reading on the bed. She looked up, her expression thoughtful. Come in, Danny. Sit with me. I sat on the edge of the bed, uncertain. The soft lamplight made the air feel heavier somehow. You know, she began, there's a certain grace in acceptance.
I think you're learning that.
Acceptance of what? She smiled faintly. Of yourself. Of what feels natural. Even when it scares you. I wanted to argue, but the warmth in her eyes disarmed me. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had been rough and careless months ago, now smoother, steadier, more deliberate. You're proud of me, I said quietly, realizing how much that mattered to me. Of course I am, she said simply. You've become someone honest. Her approval sank deep, filling places I didn't realize were empty. That weekend, Ella had friends over, 2 girls from her college art program. I tried to stay out of the way, but when they saw me, one of them smiled and said, "Oh, you must be Danny. I've heard about you." I froze. You have? Ella laughed lightly. Relax. I told them you're helping with our project. But something about the way they looked at me, curious, gentle, unjudging, made my pulse steady instead of spike. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. The project that day involved styling, color, and expression. Claire was taking photographs, and Ella was managing the aesthetics. Somehow, it turned into a test for me, not one they announced, but one I could feel. Confidence, Claire said softly behind the camera. That's what beauty really is. Can you show me that, Danny? Her voice had a strange power, calm but commanding. I nodded, stepping forward, my body moving without thought. My hair brushed against my cheek, my fingers resting delicately at my side. I didn't know where the motion came from. It felt instinctive. When she clicked the shutter, the sound echoed through the room. Afterward, I looked at the photo and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked unlike me, but because somehow I'd finally seen me. The girls clapped softly, and Ella's smile was proud, almost sisterly. You see, she said, that's who you were hiding. That night, I lingered in front of the mirror long after they'd gone to bed. I didn't see the confused boy anymore. I saw someone quieter, softer, balanced between 2 worlds but belonging to both. My reflection no longer felt foreign. I thought about my father then, about how he'd see me if he walked through the door right now. The idea terrified me. But beneath that fear was something steadier. The realization that I couldn't go back, not completely. Because now, every time they said my name, Danny, it didn't feel like a nickname anymore. It felt like the truth. The weight of becoming. I don't remember when the house started feeling different. Maybe it wasn't the house at all. Maybe it was me. The walls seemed quieter, the light softer, as if everything had shifted to reflect the changes I still couldn't name. Claire said that change wasn't something you noticed in the mirror all at once. It creeps in through the way you stand, the way you breathe, she told me one afternoon as we folded laundry together. You only realize it's happened when someone else points it out. I laughed softly. And who's pointing it out this time? She looked at me, not smiling, just studying me. Everyone who sees you, she said simply. Her words left me silent. The truth was, she wasn't wrong. Even when I went out to run errands, people's eyes lingered a little longer, not out of confusion or mockery, but something softer, curiosity, maybe recognition. It was like they could see I was in between things, unfinished, but moving towards something real. Ella noticed it too. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch, she handed me a cup of tea and said, "You're lighter lately. Happier." I shrugged, tracing a finger along the rim of my cup. I just stopped trying so hard to be who I thought I was supposed to be. She smiled. That's the first thing Mom taught me too. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind through the trees. There was a peace between us now, something quiet but understanding. That evening, Claire called me into her studio again. The same soft lights, the same faint music. But this time, there were no clothes laid out, no poses to hold, just her, sitting with her camera in her lap. "I want you to tell me your story," she said gently. "My story?"
Yes.
"The one you've been too afraid to say out loud." The question stopped me. I wanted to laugh it off, but her gaze held me still. I took a breath, feeling the words gather like a tide behind my chest. "I used to think I was invisible," I said slowly. "Like my life was happening to someone else, and I was just watching. I kept trying to be what everyone expected, stronger, louder, tougher, but none of it ever fit. And then, you and Ella." My voice faltered. "You showed me something different," I continued. "You didn't tell me who to be, you just stopped asking me to pretend." Her eyes softened, glistening faintly under the lamp's glow. "And who are you now, Danny?" The name settled over me like a whisper I finally recognized. "I don't know yet," I said honestly, "but I like the direction." She smiled. "That's all that matters." In that moment, I understood what she'd been doing all along. It was never about changing me. It was about freeing me from expectation, from fear, from the version of myself that was too scared to be gentle. Over the next few weeks, little things changed. My voice softened, my movements grew calmer, and I started choosing things that made me feel at ease instead of things that made me feel hidden. It wasn't rebellion. It was honesty. One night, as I stood by the mirror before bed, Ella leaned against the doorway, watching me quietly. "You know," she said softly, "you used to look uncomfortable in your own skin. Now you look peaceful." I smiled faintly at my reflection. "I think I'm starting to meet myself." She nodded. "Then Mom was right, we didn't change you. You just needed permission to see who you already were." The mirror caught both our reflections then, hers confident, mine new and uncertain, but not afraid anymore. And for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch from what I saw. I smiled. A real one. Because maybe, just maybe, I was finally home inside myself. Stepping outside. The first time I walked out of the house as the new version of myself, I was sure the whole world would stop and stare. It didn't. That was the strangest part. The morning sun still fell across the sidewalk in gold stripes. The neighbor's dog still barked at passing cars. The only thing different was the quiet rhythm of my own heartbeat, heavy but steady as I walked toward town. Claire had said, "You'll see that people notice confidence more than clothes." I held on to that. My hair was a little longer now, brushed neatly behind my ears. I wore soft jeans and a pale sweater that felt like calm itself. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just honest. When I reached the coffee shop, the barista smiled. "Good morning. What can I get you?" Her voice didn't hold any question mark of confusion. She treated me like I belonged there, like I was anyone else in line. My shoulders relaxed. I ordered a latte, thanked her, and when she handed me the cup with Danny scrawled across it, I almost laughed. The name looked right written in another person's handwriting. Walking home, I realized something simple but enormous. The world only mirrored what I showed it. For years I had hidden, waiting for permission to be myself. Now, with every quiet step, I was giving that permission to myself. That night, I told Claire and Ella about the coffee shop. Claire smiled, proud in that quiet way she had.
See?
The world doesn't fall apart when you show up as yourself. Ella grinned. Told you the name suits you. We spent the evening cooking together, the kind of easy, ordinary night that used to feel impossible. But this time, everything fit. When I went to bed, I caught my reflection again in the mirror. No makeup, no costume, just me. The light in my eyes was different. For the first time, I wasn't rehearsing how to be someone else. I was living it. I whispered to my reflection, barely audible, "You made it outside." And the person looking back smiled. The return of the old name. It was a Sunday evening, when Claire told me he was coming back. My father. The words felt like thunder, quiet but heavy. He hadn't been part of the house for almost a year. The divorce had left behind a silence that I'd learned to fill with new sounds, music, laughter, the calm hum of acceptance. But now that silence began to echo again. "He just wants to talk," Claire said gently, reading the panic in my eyes. "You don't have to prove anything. Just be you." Still, my stomach twisted as if the old version of me were clawing to get out, afraid of being seen like this, hair soft and styled, my walk lighter, my voice more centered in its truth. When he arrived, I heard his footsteps before his face appeared in the doorway. For a moment, everything around me blurred. The kitchen light, the clink of dishes, Ella's faint music from upstairs. Then his voice, rougher than I remembered, broke through. "Daniel?" I froze. The name hit me like an echo from another life. My throat tightened. I saw the confusion in his eyes as he looked at me. Really looked. Not angry, just lost. "It's Danny now," I said softly. He didn't answer right away. I could feel the air between us stretch thin. Claire's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, a small anchor. My father exhaled, long and slow. "I don't understand all this," he admitted. "But you look happy. Different." I smiled weakly. "That's kind of the point." He nodded once, unsure, and the tension broke just enough for us to breathe. He sat down at the table, and we talked, awkwardly, haltingly, about ordinary things. Work, neighbors, how the house looked different. Nothing deep, but it was enough. Later, after he left, I sat outside on the porch, staring up at the stars. The air felt cooler, clearer. Ella joined me, her blanket draped around both our shoulders. "That was brave," she said quietly. I was terrified. "Yeah," she grinned. "That's what makes it brave." For the first time, I realized bravery wasn't about loud declarations. It was standing your truth even when someone uses the wrong name. And that night, under the quiet hum of the sky, I whispered to myself, not as a wish but as a fact, "I'm not Daniel anymore." The stars didn't argue. They just shone a little brighter. Finding others like me. The next step wasn't planned. It just happened. It started when Ella convinced me to come with her to a small art event downtown. "It's casual," she promised. "You'll love the people there." I hesitated as always. The mirror had become a friend, but the outside world still felt like a test I might fail. Still, something in her tone told me I needed to go.
So I did.
The gallery was tucked between an old bakery and a florist shop, filled with soft music and the smell of paint and espresso. People milled about in easy conversation, laughing, sharing stories. For a while, I stood near the entrance, holding a paper cup and trying not to shrink into invisibility. Then I heard a voice behind me. "I love your hair color. It suits you." I turned. A woman my age, short curls dyed lavender, smiled at me with warmth that didn't demand anything in return. "I'm Mara," she said. I introduced myself, Danny, and for the first time, I said it to a stranger without flinching. She didn't blink, didn't pause. Just smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world. We talked for hours, wandering from painting to painting. She told me she ran a small community meetup for people exploring gender and identity. Mostly support, some laughter, lots of coffee. The next week I went. That little group changed everything. It wasn't about labels or perfection. It was about stories, raw, uncertain, brave. People spoke about parents who didn't understand, friends who surprised them, and the small victories of simply being seen. When it was my turn to share, I trembled. But as the words spilled out about Claire, about Ella, about my father calling me Daniel, it felt like breathing for the first time. They listened. They nodded. No one interrupted. No one judged. Afterward, Mara gave me a small pin, a tiny butterfly made of enamel. For transformation, she said. Not the kind that changes you into someone else. The kind that lets you become who you were always meant to be. I wore it home, feeling its light weight against my sweater. It wasn't decoration, it was a quiet promise to myself. When Claire saw it, she smiled knowingly. You've found your people. I think I have, I said, and for once, the words didn't feel borrowed. That night, I journaled until my hand ached, filling pages with everything I'd learned. Not just about identity, but about kindness, courage, and belonging. For the first time, the word home didn't mean a place. It meant a feeling, and I was finally carrying it inside me. The day the world looked back, the invitation came from Mara. We're hosting an open art night, she said one evening after our group meeting. It's all about expression, paintings, music, spoken word. You should come. Or even share something. I laughed it off at first. Me stand in front of people and speak? My voice still felt fragile, like glass newly blown and not yet cooled. But she just smiled knowingly. Sometimes saying things out loud makes them real. That sentence followed me home. It whispered through my dreams, replayed as I brushed my hair in the mirror, echoed when Claire encouraged me with her quiet faith. You've already done the hardest part, Danny. You started living as yourself. By the time the evening arrived, my nerves were a storm beneath my calm face. The event was held in a small theater lit by fairy lights strung along the walls. The air smelled of old wood, coffee, and paint. People milled about, some familiar, some not, but there was laughter, applause, a hum of shared courage. Ella sat in the front row with Claire, both smiling, both impossibly proud. I clutched a small folded note in my hands, the words I'd written and rewritten a dozen times. When they called my name, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The stage lights blinded me for a heartbeat, then softened. The microphone waited. I took a breath. Hi. I began, my voice trembling but steadying. My name is Danny. A pause. My heart beat like a drum. I used to think I was the wrong person in my own life. I used to wear clothes that didn't feel like mine, speak in ways that didn't sound like me, and answer to a name that never quite fit. I glanced toward the audience. Some nodded, some simply listened, eyes kind. But someone once told me the world doesn't fall apart when you show up as yourself. And they were right. It doesn't. It opens up. There was silence, the good kind, the kind that listens. I smiled faintly. I'm not perfect. I still have days when I look in the mirror and wonder if people see me the way I see myself. But maybe that's okay. Because being seen isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then, from somewhere in the middle rows, a voice cut through the quiet. Daniel? It was low, uncertain, but sharp enough to slice through my breath. My eyes darted toward the sound. A man stood near the back. My father. I hadn't known he'd come. The room seemed to shrink around me. Every insecurity I'd fought to silence came roaring back. The spotlight suddenly felt too bright, the stage too small. He took a step forward, face unreadable. I didn't mean to interrupt, he said softly. I just wanted to hear you. The crowd turned, then back to me. A few whispered. My pulse pounded. My first instinct was to run, to hide behind the curtain, behind my old silence. But then, Like a faint echo, I heard Mara's words. Sometimes saying things out loud makes them real. So I looked at him. Really looked. You did, I said quietly. You heard me. I'm Danny. The microphone picked up every tremor, but also every ounce of truth. The audience stayed silent, holding the moment like it was something fragile and sacred.
My father didn't move for a long time.
Then, slowly, he nodded. Not in full understanding, not yet, but in something close to acceptance. Then I'm proud of you, Danny. The words hit me like sunlight breaking through a storm. Applause rose, soft at first, then swelling until it filled the room. I blinked back tears, my heart so full it almost hurt. Claire stood, clapping, her eyes shining. Ella beamed like she'd known this moment would come all along. I laughed through the tears. Thank you, I whispered into the mic. When I stepped off the stage, people reached out, some to hug me, others to simply touch my hand or say thank you for being brave. And for the first time, I didn't feel like someone pretending to belong. I did belong. Later that night, as we walked home under the streetlights, my father walked beside me. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. There was a quiet peace between us, and for the first time, he didn't look at me like he'd lost a son. He looked at me like he'd finally found his daughter. And I finally had found myself, becoming the mirror. The art night changed everything, but not in the dramatic, fireworks kind of way. It was quieter than that, like the slow sunrise that makes you realize how long you've been in the dark. In the days that followed, I found myself walking taller, without realizing it. The air felt lighter, words came easier, and even the way people looked at me seemed different, not because I'd changed overnight, but because I was finally meeting their eyes without fear. The next week, Mara called. You did something incredible, Danny. People are still talking about your speech. I smiled, though part of me still didn't know how to accept praise. I was terrified, I admitted. Of course you were, she said. Courage is just fear that's been practiced. That line stayed with me. A few days later, Mara invited me to help co-host the next support group meeting. You don't need to lead, she said. Just be there. Sometimes people need to see someone who's survived the beginning. I almost said no. I didn't feel like a symbol of anything. I was still figuring things out myself, still fumbling through makeup tutorials, still adjusting to pronouns, still catching myself when I almost said he. But something inside me whispered, maybe that's exactly why you should go. The night of the meeting, I arrived early. The little community room smelled of coffee and paper, and chairs were arranged in a circle. People filtered in, some smiling, some clearly nervous, clutching notebooks or just their own hands. When the introductions began, I spoke last. Hi, I'm Danny, I said, voice steady this time. A year ago, I thought being myself would cost me everyone I loved. But it turns out, hiding costs more. A few heads nodded, and I felt the room breathe. Then, during the break, a quiet teen named Riley approached me. They looked around nervously before whispering, I saw your video from the art night.
My mom showed me.
She said you reminded her of me. I froze for a second. Your mom showed you? They nodded.
Yeah.
She said it helped her understand. Something in my chest cracked open. All the fear, all the confusion, every tear I'd cried in front of that same mirror, suddenly, none of it felt wasted. Somehow, through all of that, a stranger had found a little more light. I smiled at Riley, keeping my voice soft. You don't have to rush, I told them. You just have to breathe. You get to take as long as you need. They smiled back, shy but real. And I saw myself in that expression, the uncertainty, the hope, the fragile bravery. That night, as I walked home, the city lights shimmered on wet pavement. I thought about how many versions of me had existed before now, the scared one, the angry one, the hidden one, and how each of them had carried a piece of this moment. When I reached home, Claire and Ella were waiting up with mugs of tea. How did it go? Claire asked. I sat down, still smiling. I think I helped someone tonight. Ella leaned her head on my shoulder. Of course you did. You always do. The next morning, I woke up early. For the first time, I didn't reach for the mirror to check if I looked right. I just looked to see myself. The reflection looking back wasn't perfect, wasn't flawless, but it was whole. It was me. And maybe that's what transformation really is, not a moment, but a series of small, honest choices that lead you home. The mirror that blinked. It began on an ordinary morning, the kind that looks harmless until it changes everything. I was getting ready for work at the community center. Hair tied up, soft blouse, my favorite butterfly pin gleaming against the fabric. The same one Mara had given me. The same one that had become my quiet armor. The light through the window was gentle, gold-tinted. I was humming to myself, almost without realizing it. That's when I noticed it, the mirror. Something about it was off. The reflection looked back at me, same face, same faint smile, but the eyes lingered a second too long after I moved. Just a heartbeat, barely noticeable, but enough to make my breath catch. I laughed it off. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was the lighting. But as I brushed my hair, the reflection's hand trembled after mine had stilled. A chill spread through me. For a moment, I couldn't move. I stood there, staring, trying to convince myself it was imagination. But deep down, something else whispered, "You've lived through stranger transformations than this." I stepped closer. "Who are you?" I whispered, half joking, half pleading. The reflection tilted her head. Perfectly timed this time, almost mocking the earlier lag. My heart pounded. Then she smiled, a little softer, a little sadder than I'd expected. "You are," I said aloud, the words trembling out of me. "You're me." And with that, the fear shifted into something else, something ancient and beautiful and overwhelming. Because it wasn't about ghosts or mirrors or tricks of light. It was about all the pieces of me I had left behind. Daniel, the scared boy, the pretending one, the angry one. They'd all lived here, in that reflection, waiting for me to look without shame. The mirror wasn't haunting me. It was showing me who I used to be one last time. I reached out. My fingers brushed cool glass. "Thank you," I whispered. And the reflection. My reflection nodded. Just once, like a quiet goodbye. When I blinked, the moment was gone. The mirror was just a mirror again. My heart still raced, but now with clarity instead of fear. Outside, the sky was wide and bright. Claire called from downstairs. "Danny, you're going to be late." "I'm coming," I yelled back, smiling. As I walked out the door, something inside me settled, like a storm finally spent. At the bus stop, I caught my reflection in the glass of a passing window. The girl looking back was calm, sure, alive. No lag this time. No shadow of the old name. The world still moved fast, loud, imperfect, but I moved with it. And for the first time, the thought came not as a question, but as a quiet truth. The transformation isn't what happened to me. It's what I chose to keep becoming. The bus doors opened. I stepped inside. The morning light followed me, soft and forgiving. And as the city blurred past, I smiled, because somewhere between who I was and who I am, I had finally found peace.